Humans are insane. The Galactic Collective had been monitoring Earth for a century before the humans even knew they existed. A council of peaceful, highly advanced species governed the galaxy, thriving through diplomacy, cooperation, and technological prowess. The collective had seen hundreds of species rise to spacefaring status, and they knew when a new species could be dangerous. But humans? They were something else entirely. Captain Vereth, a commander of the Vratilian fleet, stared at the report in disbelief. "What do you mean, they froze themselves?" he asked his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Jellic. "It's true, Captain. According to our latest surveillance, they are launching themselves into space in metal tubes, voluntarily entering a state of cryogenic suspension." Vereth's mandibles twitched in confusion. "So they're risking death just to travel in those tiny ships?" Jellic nodded, his antennae quivering. "Yes, sir. It seems to be a form of exploration. They call it pushing the limits." The captain leaned back in his command chair, his bioluminescent skin pulsing in shades of disbelief. These humans get stranger by the cycle. Meanwhile, in the cold void of space, Commander Sarah Wells smiled as she looked out the viewport of the Endeavour. It was humanity's first crewed mission to a star system 20 light-years away, a culmination of centuries of ambition. She was the captain of this crew of dreamers, all of whom had willingly been put into cryo-sleep for the majority of the journey. Approaching the target system, her co-pilot, Lieutenant Harris, said, a note of excitement in his voice. "We're making history today." "Damn right we are," Sarah grinned. "Activate the scanners. Let's see what we've got out here." The ship hummed to life, sending out waves of data-gathering signals across the uncharted system. Sarah had always known that space was dangerous, but that was part of what made it exciting. For humans, danger was never a deterrent, it was a challenge. Back on the Vratilian command vessel, the sensors were going haywire. Vereth stared at the readings, trying to comprehend them. "Captain, the humans' vessel has just entered the Necroth system," Jellic reported, his voice trembling. "They're probing the gas giant's rings for data." Vereth recoiled in shock. "That's a death zone. Those rings are teeming with electromagnetic storms. Any ship entering that space would be pulverized." But the humans didn't seem to care. The Endeavour plowed through the hazardous region, dodging debris and discharging static from the ship's shields. To the alien captain, it was as if the humans were dancing with death, completely unconcerned about the impossibility of their mission. "Are they enjoying this?" Vereth muttered. His multi-lensed eyes focused on the human ship, which was broadcasting something strange, a series of rhythmic pulses, loud and jarring to Vratilian ears. "Sir, they appear to be transmitting something called music," Jellic explained. "Music? They're playing sounds during a life or death mission?" Vereth was utterly baffled. "These creatures. They're completely insane." On board the Endeavour, Harris was laughing as the ship dodged another electromagnetic burst. "This is what I signed up for," he shouted over the blaring rock music Sarah had put on. Sarah, still grinning, gave the thumbs up. "Danger's half the fun, Harris. This is what makes us human." Later, as the Galactic Collective convened to discuss the strange species called humans, the reports only grew more disturbing. "They willingly ingest toxic substances for recreational purposes," said one report from the Trellians, a species known for their careful health practices. "They consume a liquid called alcohol, which impairs their judgment, and yet they call it relaxation. They expose themselves to extreme temperatures voluntarily," added the Exarthans, a desert-dwelling species. "They have entire buildings where they force themselves to endure intense heat just for the experience. And they engage in simulated combat for entertainment," a Vranith ambassador said, his tendrils writhing in discomfort. "They call it sports. I've seen footage of them crashing into each other at high speeds, breaking bones, and still celebrating afterward." The collective members exchanged uneasy glances. No species had ever displayed such reckless, self-endangering behavior. To them, humans were more dangerous to themselves than to any external threat. Finally, the council turned to Ambassador Kurel, an elder statesman of the Zeltraxians, who had been tasked with studying the psychological profile of humanity. "Ambassador Kurel, What is your assessment? The council chair asked. Carell's eye stalks swiveled thoughtfully before he spoke. In all my cycles of service, I have never encountered a species so unique. They thrive on chaos, on danger, and the unknown. They seek it out, as if the absence of it is what truly scares them. Meanwhile, in the cold void of space, Commander Sarah Wells grinned as she looked out the viewport of the Endeavour. It was humanity's first crewed mission to a star system 20 light-years away, a culmination of centuries of ambition. The Endeavour's crew had spent the majority of the trip in cryosleep, voluntarily putting their lives in the hands of machines to make the journey across the stars. Now awake, they were approaching their destination, the Nekrith system, where uncharted planets awaited their exploration. We're making history today, Sarah said, the gleam in her eye betraying her excitement. Beside her, Lieutenant Harris was just as enthusiastic. Just another day of humanity doing the impossible. Sarah laughed. Yeah, if by impossible you mean hurtling ourselves through space in a tin can after freezing ourselves for 5 years. Wouldn't have it any other way, Harris replied with a grin. Where's the fun if there's no risk? She nodded in agreement, and with a press of a button, she activated the long-range scanners to sweep the nearby planets. Let's see what this system has to offer. As they drifted closer to the gas giant, Sarah's pulse quickened. This was the thrill she had always chased, the unknown, the uncertainty. For humans, the idea of playing it safe had never held much appeal. If they weren't risking something, were they even living? Back at the Galactic Collective headquarters. In the towering chambers of the Galactic Collective, the council was in disarray. The reports of the humans' exploits were pouring in faster than they could process, and the sheer audacity of what they were reading was causing widespread panic among the normally calm and orderly council members. They consume toxic chemicals for pleasure, an ambassador from the Zelthran species was saying. This substance called alcohol actively damages their biological systems, yet they imbibe it willingly. How is this not madness? And they ingest capsaicin, a chemical that causes pain, as a part of their food consumption rituals, added another representative, her voice filled with disbelief. They seek out the sensation of burning their own sensory organs. They enjoy it. The council murmured in shocked agreement. Ambassador Zorath, a towering, crystalline lifeform, raised one of its shimmering appendages to address the group. We must acknowledge the possibility that humans are not rational creatures. Their actions defy all logic. I propose immediate measures to prevent them from expanding their influence into the galaxy. These creatures could be dangerous. But they are still developing, said Councillor Relac, a more measured voice from the aquatic Aquilians. If we intervene too soon, we may provoke aggression. Remember, they are unpredictable. Zorath bristled, its crystalline form glittering with tension. Unpredictable is putting it lightly. They engage in simulated warfare with each other, harming themselves in the name of sport. They jump from heights with minimal safety, swim in freezing water for amusement, and consume poisons willingly. If this is how they treat themselves, what might they do to others? The council grew silent as they considered the implications. They build weapons capable of destroying their own planet multiple times over, yet their response is not fear, but innovation, Zorath continued. They keep pushing further, seeking to conquer everything, even death. The encounter. Several days later, the Endeavour approached an electromagnetic storm surrounding the gas giant. The storm was so severe that no other species in the collective had dared to explore the planet's rings. Commander, I'm picking up a lot of interference, Harris said, his voice tense. Good, Sarah replied, her face lighting up. Let's dive in. Harris shot her a concerned look. You're serious? When are we not serious about pushing boundaries? We came here to make history, didn't we? Harris hesitated for only a second before the grin returned to his face. You're right. Let's do this. The ship dipped into the storm, navigating the violent electromagnetic currents with calculated risk. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure, but Sarah's grip on the controls was firm, her expression determined. Sparks flew across the control panels as the storm's interference grew stronger. That's it. Keep her steady, Sarah shouted over the noise. Watching in horror. On board the Vratilian command vessel, Captain Vereth and his crew were watching in abject horror. The human vessel was deliberately flying into a storm that should have torn it apart by now. "They're surviving," Jellic whispered, awe and confusion mingling in his voice. Vereth could barely comprehend what he was seeing. "It's as if they have no concept of self-preservation." "Or perhaps they do," Jellic replied, "and they simply don't care." "They're playing with death," Vereth said softly. "And they're winning."